record. So the first question is account records cannot be deleted if active checkbox is clicked as. So here then I'll open Notepad++ first. So my question is accounts cannot be deleted if active pick list value is yes. We should not be able to delete this field. So initially I'll go to account object and I'll check whether we'll be having active checkbox field or not. So accounts, I'm jumping to accounts. And meanwhile, I'll open developer console also. It's loading. So I'm opening tab. Okay. Meanwhile, I'll open this account record details. So if I'm searching active, yes, we'll be having active field. I'll try to edit this. You can see like yeah, we'll be having yes and no. So if this active checkbox is selected as yes, so after these, now let's suppose now if you want to delete this record, let's suppose again I'm going to a account. Let's suppose if I click here on a delete, it should not be delete. Now it will be delete, but we need to write a trigger which should prevent your attempt to delete the creation could not be complete because you just with the following cases. Like if this case is active, then it won't be deleted. Okay, I'll delete that case or I'll close that case. So I'll delete this case. Now I'll try to delete this account. Now this account is deleted. But if the active checkbox is ticked, we should not be able to delete the record. So on which object we need to write a trigger now? On which object we need to write a trigger? Yes, first account only, like we are performing automation on account. Which kind of trigger we need to write here? So like after deleting the record, like see, before deleting the record, we need to check whether the active field is yes or not. So for that, here we need to write a trigger on a before delete context. Okay. So now after this, prior to this, what I'll do is I'll go to the Apex class. In this Apex class, I'll write a method. Okay. So in this, which method we need to write? Okay, it's corresponding to this one. So we need to write a method. That method should be static method, public static, and it should not have any return type, void. And here we need to write a method name like prevent delete. Okay, it is my method name, and here we need to pass list of accounts. Okay, so here I'll say like acc list. It's like my variable. Okay, in this method, I'll define a parameters like we need to query the data. So we need to query account data for account ACC. We need to iterate through ACC list, ACCL. So while iterating through ACC list, here we need to check this field value. If ACC means single account now, ACC dot, which field we need to check? We need to check active field. So this pick list field, if this pick list field value equals to yes, we need to specify it in a quotations. If it is yes, if this condition is satisfied, then what we need to do? We need to add an error message. If this condition is satisfied, we need to add an error message. So far, I did not explain to you how to add an error message. To add an error message, we'll be having add error keyword. So add error is a method which is used to add an error. So which kind of validation error you want to throw, you can add that error message here. So label, like where you want to display this error. Directly, if you want to write an error message, by default, this message will be displayed on top of the page. But if you want to display this thing at any specific location, you can specify that thing. So now here, what I'll do is I'll say label dot, like where you want to display this thing, you can write that. Prevent account deletion. Let's suppose I'm writing this thing. Prevent account deletion, like that I'm calling some error method which I define in the top of the trigger. We'll see that from where we are grabbing this. Okay, like if you are not getting it, simply you can go through this thing. Add error. How to add an error method in a trigger. Add error method, developer community. From here you can check. Okay, how to write it, and you can see complete description regarding our error method. So if you want to add a error method, yeah, you can see like this, you can add directly add error missing contact info. Like this directly also you can add an error message. So let's suppose here also what I'll do is actually I need to get a complete guide of this. I'm searching for that. Add error missing contact info. Like that we can add any error message, but I need to find this kind of thing. So okay, here also I want to this name is not allowed. So here also I'll add a error method in a different way, like however we specified there. We need to define this method label, like this class, and from this class we need to define label. Means here field name, on which field you want to add an error. On active field I need to add an error. Control C. And like here, by specifying that field name, like if you want to specify any error, you can define that error in a form of string and you can call that variable like this. But here directly I want to display this error. Here what I want to display is we can't be able to delete account with active status. Let's suppose I want to display this message as an error. Okay, like this I'm adding an error. So I need to show you a syntax. Give me a minute. We'll check that exception. Okay, here we might get that. We'll see the syntax of that. So add error method, like how to use this. So here the structure is S object name, on which object we are writing in, and add error. It's a very, very important interview question, like how to add an validation by taking help of triggers. So you can see the different ways. Add error, error message, add error, exception error, escape. Like that, you can use any of these syntaxes to define an error. So let's suppose if you want to display an error message on any specific field, what you can do is initially you can specify a field name here. Beside this field name, whatever the error message you want to display, you can specify that error message. In this way also we can display. Whereas if you write an error message directly, that error message replicate on the top of the page. And let's suppose if you want to display a validation on a field itself, beside this you can specify a field name. Like this you can specify an error. So time is running out, that's why I will go a bit faster. So okay, perfect. I'll check whether it is closed or not. Yes, it's closed and we're not having any errors. We defined an apex class, like a method. Now we need to write a trigger. So to write a trigger, which kind of trigger it is? Like initially we need to check whether it is a delete context or not. Okay, so if trigger dot, if the context is delete or not, first I need to check this condition. If it is delete, then I need to check one more condition, that is trigger dot is before or not. If it is delete, then we need to check whether it is a before context or not. After checking these two conditions, if these two conditions are satisfied, then we need to call that specific apex method. So here I'll go through it. I need to prevent delete. It's my method. Prevent delete. In this, we need to pass a trigger dot new context. And prior to this, we need to specify this class name. Perfect. Now it would be fine. I think missing something. Nothing is missing. Now I'll go and check here. So we'll be having trigger one. So yeah. So here I'll go to details of this. Now what I'll do is I'll go to active, check active field. I'll make it to S. I'm saving it. Perfect. Now I want to delete it. Are you sure you want to delete again? Yes. You can see there's a problem saving this record. You might not have a permission to edit or might have been deleted archive. Help. Like it is giving this error, but I'm not expecting this error actually. Okay, I'll go to accounts again. I'll go to delete this account from here. So we added error, that's why it is showing like this. Let's suppose we'll try to delete this one. Get to know whether that is an error or not. There's a problem saving this record. Might not have a permission to edit. I'll check whether the like this record also have a same thing or not. It's not having any contacts. It's not having anything. I'll go to details. I'll check account status. So it's not it updated. Do we write any other trigger on this? Give a minute. I will keep a debug log and we'll check it. Or else I'll uncomment it and I'll comment it and I'll check whether it is working perfectly or not. I'm saving this record. Now it should not impact. Okay. So let's suppose if I try to delete it, it should be deleted. Okay. Means we are having problem with the trigger only. Okay. I'll go to this Apex class and I'll untick these. Okay. Sorry, here we should not call the trigger dot new context. We need to check trigger dot old context. Okay. So it's a delete, right? Like after deleting, like before deleting, we need to take the next value, like whatever the value present in a field while saving the record. So old value we need to check. Okay. I'll save it. I'll check it now. Okay. Where we need to check. Okay. I'll go to these and test trigger. Delete. So whenever you use a before trigger context, like account is got deleted. Now I'll try to delete trigger one. Trigger one in a trigger one will be having that active checkbox value. We'll see it. Like if you get in that error, yeah, you can see can't be delete an account with the active status. Like whatever the validation we kept there, that is displaying here. Whatever the error message we kept there, that is coming here. Okay, it is about adding an error. So for you guys on these, I'll give you a simple assignment, like same kind of assignment. Okay, the question is prevent deleting an account from being edited. Prevent account record from being edited if the account record is finished. Okay. Prevent not deleting. Here I'll give you a edit option. Prevent editing an account record if it is created 7 days stack. Easy question only, right? Like if you need any context, let me know. I'll explain you how to do this. Okay. If you stuck somewhere, feel free to message me. Apply validation using add error method and trigger while creation of opportunity emojis. Okay. Like another question is you can take another example also. While creating an opportunity, if amount field is null, we need to throw a error message. Which error message you need to get? Amount field cannot be null. Like that, you need to get an error. That example also you can consider. I'm searching for a best example. Okay, it's an important question. Write a trigger on account and check only system admin profile user should be able to delete an account. So for that, we need to write a trigger. Like we can do it manually in a profile settings, but here we need to write a trigger on an account object. So if the system admin can only be able to delete the record. So if the user is belonging to any other profile, he tries to delete an account record, then it needs to throw an error like you cannot have an delete access to delete an account record. Like that, we need to only system admin can delete an account record. Like that, he can throw an error message. So for that, like same example, whatever we did previously, but here you need to query a profile of a person. How to query that? You should know that. So how to query the profile? So everything in a Salesforce is an S object. So I'll say profile is an S object. I want to store the data in variable P, and we need to write a query here. So which query? Like a simple query, we need to write select. We need to query ID from. We need to query ID from profile. Okay, where name equals to profile name equals to system administrator. If the profile name is like this, system administrator, then if yeah, sorry, here it is a query, right? If this condition is satisfied, then what we need to do is we need to iterate through all the accounts. Simple, I'm writing a logic for account ACC. In ACC list will be having, right? Like on this list, we need to iterate through. So while iterating through this account record, next what we need to do is we need to check a condition. If what we need to do is we'll be having user info method. Okay, user info dot get profile ID from like user info means like whatever the user who logged in a Salesforce, we can get that user profile by taking help of this information. If user info is a method, like it's a class, what it contains is it will contain a logged in user details. In this, I need to get a profile of that user. So what, like I need to get a profile ID. Okay, if this profile ID is not equals to the profile ID of a system admin, so p dot id means like here we got it, like in a top we queried that. P means the record which we get here. We are checking both the IDs are same or not. If both are same, then what, both are not same, then we need to add an error. So we'll be having add error method. On account, we need to add an error. Acc dot add error. Whatever the error message you want to add, you can add it here and you can close it here. In this way, you can write an Apex class. Like you'll be familiar with the context, like how to write a context. So if opportunity is close one, I'm checking whether I have an example of like a deadlock situation. Prevent deletion of account if there that account. Lot of scenarios will be having for deletion also. Mhm. specify template. Okay. I'm searching for an example. Give me a minute. In my mobile, I'm searching. This example is not available on this page. Okay. It's not present here. Okay, I'll search in Google now in front of you so that we'll be get that deadlock situation. So avoid deadlock Apex developer guide. So deadlock situation means, let's suppose if you are working on a trigger, so your trigger, like you'll be having two triggers. Let's suppose if you have one trigger on an account, the purpose of the trigger is whenever you create an account, on that account, you need to create a contact also. Let's suppose similarly, you'll be having another scenario. On that scenario, you'll be having requirement like if new contact is created means you need to create an account for that contact. So at the time, what happens? Let's suppose if you are creating an account, one contact will be created. So one contact is created means again we need to create an account. So again one account is created means again it will create a contact. Like that recursively it will create the records again and again and again. Means this trigger call that trigger call this trigger. This scenario is said as a deadlock situation. To avoid deadlock situation, we need to write an Apex class. We need to write an Apex class. I'll search for an. I'm searching for an example here. If you get an example, then it could be much better. Locking records. Yeah, like we need to log the records. We, like avoid that. I'll search like if you get that example, it could be much better. Like, for update. Okay. Oh. Best ways to avoid recursive trigger. Let's trigger best practices. Avoid recursion. I'm opening different blocks. If I get an example, directly I'll take that example and I'll explain you. So like if you want to avoid it, yeah, it's the best example. It's the best example we can say. So what is recursive trigger? He explained. A recursive trigger is the one that performs an action such as an update or insert, which invokes itself owing to say something like an update it performs. Simple example, like same thing what I said. Like if you are executing, like if you are performing some DML operations in a Salesforce system, so by default it will call some trigger. Let's suppose if the trigger fires, if there is any other, if there is any dependencies, with that dependency, sometimes it may call another trigger. Like that recursively, this trigger call that trigger call this trigger. Recursively, same code execute repeatedly. At the time, it goes for deadlock situation. So it will execute again and again and again. It will hit the DML like governor limits and it will terminate. That is a deadlock situation. To avoid deadlock situation, what we can do is we can create an Apex class. We need to create an Apex class. On that Apex class, we need to write this check recursive. Like that, you can create an Apex class. And by default, you can set a one variable like Boolean variable. So whenever that Apex class runs, you need to make this value to false. So if it is false, we should not execute the trigger. Like that, we need to write a code. So you can see here in this example, what he explained is public class check recursive. Whether it is a recursive class or not, we need to check that. After checking that, we need to define one Boolean variable and public static Boolean run once. So this Boolean variable or this method needs to be run at only one time. So for that, we are defining a method with the name return type boolean, and I'm keeping value like run once is the method name. So if this method is running, means if this value is true, by default it is true. If it is running for the first time, what we are doing is we are checking this condition, and we are making run equals to false, and we are returning value like output like true. Else, if it is like if it is run equals to true by default, if it is not satisfied, we are returning run value, means by default we are returning the existed value in it. Okay, it's the apex class. Now here you can see, so on our trigger what we are doing is we are adding an additional condition. So we are calling this method. While calling this method, we'll check this value if run. So if it is running for the first time, by default its value like true, means it will goes into this block and this method will be called off. Okay, let's suppose if you are like if it is executed already, its value will be false. If its value is false, it will check this run condition, this condition will fail, it won't perform any actions. That will happen. So same thing he explained with a different example. It is also a one more example. It's first time. If it is a first time, he's defining one variable. So you can see like here we are setting the variable value like true. By default, it will be true for the first time. And we are writing a trigger. While writing a trigger, we are checking this value. Is first time value is true or not? If it is true, see, you can see class name dot variable. In this way, we can check the condition class name dot variable. In this way, we are accessing. And while entering into this trigger, we are making this value to false. If this trigger is executed, means we should not execute this trigger again. That's why we are making it to false. Okay, and we are performing whatever the actions required to us. The next, this value for the next time, this value will be false. So if you try to execute same trigger again, what happens? This value will become like while checking this condition itself, here itself it will be fails. It won't enter into this condition and it won't perform these actions. Clear? If you're not clear, message in the group so that tomorrow I'll come up with an example.
No, Jacob. I didn't get this part.
Simple. Recursive trigger means understood, right? What is recursive trigger? Theoretical.
Yes, by definition, I know that.
So to avoid that problem, what we can do is we can create an apex class. While creating an apex class, on that class, what we need to say is we need to say like we need to define one Boolean variable, and by default we can set its value to either true or false. Let's suppose if we set it for true. So what we need to check is while entering into the trigger, we need to check by default if it is true or not. Till this clear, right? Clear, or can I write it in a notepad? First step to avoid a deadlock situation. Apex class with Boolean variable and its value should be true. Let's suppose this one is clear, right? After this, we need to go to trigger. While going into the trigger, initially what we need to do is we need to check the condition. That condition is if this Boolean value class name dot Boolean variable is true or not. If it is true, for the next time, what we need to do is we need to change this variable value. Cname dot Boolean variable. We need to make this value to false. So if you make it false, means it will be changed in apex class also. Okay. If it is true, we are entering into this, and here we are performing our DML operation. Like whatever the method or whatever the action, like we'll be having trigger handler class, right? Along with this, we'll be having trigger handler class. Okay. So in this trigger handler class, we'll be having our method to perform specific action. Okay. These things we are having. Now here, what I want to do is if this condition is satisfied, if this Boolean variable value is true, then only we are entering into this class. While entering into this class, we are making this variable value to false. Then next, what we are doing is we are performing this action. We need to, if this condition is satisfied, then only we need to call that specific trigger handler class, and we need to execute that specific method. Till here, everything is clear? Clear, doubt? Clear or doubt? See, say something, please. Richa, Prashanti.
Actually, we need example in developer console, Yakub.
Like there were, like, to create that, what we need to do is, initially we need to create a trigger on an account and contact. Then again we need to write a contact, like a trigger on a contact, and again there we need to have a, while contact creation we need to create an account. After that, like, we need to call those two things here. Tomorrow I'll give you an example, don't worry, or else I'll share you an example in your group. Okay, initially understand this, like how to write this logically to explain in an interview. Someone will definitely will face this question if you go for developer interview from a triggers. Like mostly with these, like all the trigger scenario based questions for an interview will complete. Okay, so here what happens is whenever you call this trigger method for the first time. Okay, okay. Richa, you can leave, you can continue. Like I'll stop here, and tomorrow I'll start bit early, 7:20 p.m. itself I'll start. Okay. Yep. I'll just